So welcome. My name's Emma Paradis. I'm the Manager of Policy and Strategic Initiatives at CommonGood Vermont. CommonGood's a statewide program of United Way of Northwest Vermont dedicated to uniting, strengthening, and advocating for Vermont's nonprofit sector. And I'm here today joined by two nonprofit executive directors from organizations here in Chittenden County. I have Shabnam Nolan of King Street Center and Rhoni Basden of Vermont Works for Women. And we're here to talk about what I'm sure you've heard about in the news plenty about the Trump's administration actions that are impacting local organizations and our communities. And so we're here to talk about what does this look like on the ground for organizations here in our community. So we're going to hear how these organizations have been impacted, the challenges they're navigating, and what they're seeing as they look forward. So Rhoni and Shabnam, before we dive in, I'd love for our audience to get to know you and your work. Maybe let's start with Shabnam.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us here today. King Street Center is a nonprofit based in Burlington. We serve children 18 months to 18 years old and their families. So over the course of a year, that's almost 200 kids. And when you think about their families, over 400 people here in Burlington that are impacted every day by our organization. And it's really our work, youth development. Youth development is the work that we do, supporting families and their children so that their futures are bright and they have the opportunities that are needed for a bright future.
Wonderful. Thanks, Shabnam. Rhoni.
Yeah, and thank you. Vermont Works for Women, we are a statewide economic justice organization. We really seek to advance gender equity and support women and youth in any and all stages of their career journeys. So that really looks like providing direct support in training, in empowerment, in confidence building, but also working with our schools and industries to be welcoming and inclusive and motivating for all workers across Vermont.
Thank you. Thank you both. And maybe before we dive in too much deeper, just curious, what does that work look like? Can you give an example maybe of a family you've interacted with or an example?
Yeah, well, I think one of the best things about the center and the work we do is it looks different every single day because of the broad scope of that work. We have an early childhood education program, a elementary program, a teen program, a family support program, and a mentoring program. But on any given day, what that means is that kids and families show up looking for a connection, for safety, for meals. And one of the stories I think that really comes to mind for me is in the last 2 years, we've actually expanded quite a bit. We've added 2 new programs, family support being one of them, which given the context of even this conversation will only become more and more important. And we had a mom who came to us, I had seen her outside in front of the center and she was like, I've got this bill, I don't really understand, my child is on Medicaid. She has 3 children in our early ed program, and what we were able to do is say, why don't you actually go talk to the family support director, because if she is on Medicaid coverage, there should be no bill for her health appointment. What we end up finding is the child had lost the health insurance coverage, and our family support director worked with mom to get her enrolled again, and that was after 1 medical bill, not after 50 medical bills, and we all know that once you go into that kind of debt, it can be nearly impossible to get out of. And so this program is really about supporting families so that we can prevent crisis, and every day there are stories just like that one.
Wow, so you're really navigating a lot, everything from children and families to the healthcare system.
Yes.
Wow. What about you, Rhoni?
Yeah, and our programs really look at kind of building exposure and building confidence and making sure that both women and youth have opportunities to see what their future can hold and what their skills are capable of and the potential can be. So whether that's training on hard skills in carpentry, electrical, plumbing, whether it's running summer camp programs across the state in welding and building, or working with some of our local tech centers to really expose some of our youth to what are those opportunities. We really want to make sure they not only know they're available, but that they're capable of tackling them. But we also really try to work on the other side of the coin too with industries and with our learning and work environments to make sure that the historic barriers that have prevented women specifically from entering these industries, that they're working towards adjusting policies or practices or having these conversations and making sure that this movement is progressive for all and helpful to build our communities up.
Oh, that's really interesting. And so again, it's just, the full circle, full picture, not just doing the work, but also engaging with the larger environment around us.
Yeah, the systems work. That's
Yeah.
vital to really, I think, for all of our organizations to do the work. Most of the challenges come in the systems we work within.
So true. And I think that's a great lead into my next question for you both around, we don't operate in an isolated environment. We rely on government funding. We rely on different programs and services, as do the communities that we serve, and policy decisions impact our work. So I'm curious, before, the current situation that we're in now, how did those different programs and funding maybe impact your organizations, or how did you engage with them?
Before the federal funding
Yeah.
cuts happened? Well, so we serve low-income children and families, and that means that every day they're having to navigate the difficulties of what it's like to not have the financial resources that are required to live the life they want to live, and every system that you can imagine, social service system, our families engage with. So the majority of our families rely on Medicaid for their health coverage. The majority of our families rely on 3 squares for food security. The majority of families rely on Section 8 vouchers for housing. And so it really is wrapping around them in a number of ways, and all of these systems interact, and they're really at the center of that interaction.
Wow. Thanks for framing that. It's really helpful context. What about you?
Yeah, and for our organization, Vermont is a small state, and federal funding allows you programmatically to do a lot more and have larger impacts. And so previous to recent executive orders and changes, we worked closely with the Women's Bureau through the U.S. Department of Labor to really expand workforce development programming, making sure that our employers are getting trained individuals who are motivated and ready, and that we're accessing programming in communities that can really benefit from training opportunities that didn't exist. Most of the federal funding that we've received historically has allowed our programming to be free, which is one of the largest barriers to accessing programming. And so that type of funding, especially for a small state like Vermont, federal funding allows programs to really grow over years and build impact.
So what a great example of a partnership between government and nonprofits.
Yeah.
Thank you. And maybe we'll go to you, Rhoni. How have things changed now since mid-January this year?
Very quickly and very drastically. Our organization specifically was impacted by the DEI executive orders. And so we immediately had a very large workforce development federal grant frozen and funding completely frozen. We are cautiously optimistic as we're part of temporary restraining orders and kind of moving by the whims of the court systems to continue to access that funding. We're also seeing impacts in other areas. I think these executive orders, as you hear, they're so far-reaching, and I think the impacts will be long-term as we see them bubble up. But we're even seeing sub-awards go from other organizations or businesses that have received federal funding for great projects across the state, but had maybe written in DEI initiatives that help build their organization and help benefit their workforce. A lot of those are being pulled back to try to maintain compliance with federal orders. So we're seeing that happen in both education spaces and in a lot of our contracts with industries.
And so the impact of that is sort of limiting on your programs? Are you looking at other funding?
It's absolutely limiting on programs and just the participants that can access it. It limits how many can go into programs, where they go into programs, the industries. And so it's not only a detriment, I think, to our program participants, but to the workforce in general. We needed labor even before this. And so this is just one more kind of domino to fall that impacts that.
Yeah, I guess just thinking about Vermont and all of our housing and construction needs, you are building that workforce, and that's going to be impacted.
Yeah.
what about you, Shabnam? How are things looking now?
Yeah, I think one of the challenging things for an organization like King Street is that the federal funds don't only impact us as an organization, it impacts the people we serve every day as well. So, like I said, because so many of our families rely on a lot of the programs that are now being targeted for severe reductions in funding, our families are going to disproportionately feel that pain and hurt. And it's going to be King Street who's going to step in to help mitigate that pain. But in addition to that, we do rely on federal funding for our early childhood education programs. So we're a Head Start collaborative partner, which means all of our 23 slots for children ages 18 months to 5 years are Head Start slots. And if Head Start were to disappear, that would have a significant impact on the organization. In addition to that, we rely on the Burlington School District's food project for nearly 47,000 meals that we serve every year. And so if more funding cuts are going to be targeted towards food programs, which we've already started to see happen, it's really going to strain school budgets, which are already strained, and that could potentially filter out to the after-school and youth development programs that rely on that as a food source. And then finally, we rely pretty significantly on child care subsidy, which is a mix of state and federal dollars, but the state, as it does with many programs, relies on that federal portion in order to be able to keep its portion up. So the hope is that we can maintain all three of those sources.
Wow, that's a lot up in the air and unknown. And how are you managing planning and thinking about, what's next?
Well, I have to give a significant amount of credit to the community and to our supporters because they have supported King Street and our mission for more than 50 years, and I believe deeply and firmly that they will show up for the King Street community. That was true during COVID. It was a period of time where nobody knew what was going to happen, and the community really stepped in to say, this is important work, and we've got your back, and we're going to make sure you're still here after that. And they were, and they showed up. And so we are going to lean in to the community and ask that they continue to support us and our children and our families, because no matter what happens at the federal level, people every day have to live a life, and every day is a day in which we have to continue to foster the development of children and support the needs of families. And King Street will be there because of the people who support us.
It's a strong message. Thanks. And how about you? How are you navigating these changes or planning or deciding, are we running this program? Are we not running this program?
Planning is a loose word. You plan for the next day and just hope that plan still works by then. I will say a lot of what we're hearing too, and very similar, that we're leaning into the fact that our participant demand is the highest it's ever been. We know that individuals still want and seek out these programs, that they see the opportunities for their future in them. I think we've been very grateful for seeing a lot of our partnerships or the businesses we work with that have leaned in to their DEI initiatives and have not backtracked or backed down from it. That is the absolute glimmer of hope we want to continue to see and hear. And then we've just had supporters that have reached out and wanted to support in ways they can. And I think as Vermont, whatever happens at the federal level is absolutely correct, but as Vermont, we have resources to connect and share, and I think this is the time where we'll start to see more creativity amongst our state.
It's really great to hear that the businesses are stepping up. I know they're also having their own challenges, but that's great to hear that they're involved as well. And so I guess I'm also wondering, how are your staff and those you serve, what are you hearing from them? How are you communicating with them? Is there a message that you're sharing? I know you shared that you'll be there, but is there anything else you want to share on that?
Yeah, I think that it's really important in a time like this to remember your staff, actually. So I'm glad you asked that specific question, because we really need our staff to feel supported, to feel safe and secure in order to support the community and ensure they feel safe and secure. And so we have made significant efforts over the past several years to increase salaries, to increase benefits, and we're going to continue to support staff through this. That could look a lot of different ways, but ensuring that their mental health is strong and giving them what they need to show up for families is critical, regardless of what's going on at the federal level, but especially because of what's going on. And that's true of families and children as well. Support means that they can show up every day and know that we're going to be there. Their kid can show up and know that they have a safe place to be, a warm meal, a new opportunity to explore their future, and being able to lean into the mission is exactly what we need to do to get through the moment.
Definitely. How about for you?
I echo everything, and also just being as transparent as possible. I think with staff is the best we can do. I think all of us are learning as we go in this process, and so I try to very much recognize with our full organization, like we are learning everything we can and trying to understand what these impacts mean for us and for our participants. And so it's a lot of communication as much as possible. And very similar, I think, with our supporters and board members in the community. This is what we know as of today, and this is what we plan to do. As organizations, we're still going to continue to do the same work. Despite everything happening, we're going to stay true to our mission and vision and continue the work that, has always needed to be done and the reason we exist. And I think that's the message we try to share with our full teams.
Wonderful. And I'm wondering, I know you mentioned partners in different communities. I wonder, are there people you're working with? How are you finding out about different changes that are impacting you? Is there a larger response in the networks you're part of?
We are very fortunate as an organization to have similar serving organizations in other parts of the country that also had the same buckets of funding frozen. So we have maintained regular communication to see what that's looking like in different communities. Again, this is impacting states differently, and so it is difficult to say what's happening in Chicago is something we can mimic here. There's a lot of other organizations. I know Chicago Women in Trades is one that the same bucket of funding was frozen, and they've filed federal lawsuits. And so we are trying to be loud and supportive of their work and these initiatives, because whatever happens there then will impact us. So I think it's trying to stay connected as much as possible, but also recognize the landscape here in Vermont is so different to these impacts.
That's a great point. Yeah, definitely varies state to state, and great to hear that you all are working together. What about you, Shabnam?
So for us, we regularly hold a number of different partnerships, both with organizations similar to ours, but with other kinds of organizations as well. We try to make an intentional effort to have staff be a part of different task force or coalitions so that we can stay connected and engaged with the greater community. For example, a couple of years ago, I helped to start what's called the Burlington Youth Collaborative. That collaborative is made up of organizations that serve teens here in Burlington, specifically from the immigrant and refugee communities, and it's an effort for us to get together and identify ways that we can work together to fill gaps and meet needs of the communities we collectively serve. We're also on various state task force, and then part of organizations like CommonGood Vermont, which has been pulling together nonprofit organizations to have conversations like this, and being on the Treasurer's task force around the federal impacts has been a great way to hear from experts across different fields and learn how all of the different executive orders are impacting Vermont's economy.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think the message here is really collaboration is going to be key, and working together. I know CommonGood is holding a conversation in a couple of weeks in May that's going to bring together philanthropy and nonprofits. So just these conversations are happening in all different spheres, and I think that's just so wonderful. And I guess I'm wondering, we've talked a lot about dark things, and is there a bright spot? Is there some opportunity or something that you personally in your organization are looking forward to in the next year or so?
Go ahead.
Yes, there's a lot of bright spots, because when I walk into the center every day, all of the worries or fears of what might come quickly fade away when you look at a child who is deeply engaged in strengthening their literacy skills, or a high schooler who's excited because they just came back from a field trip that they learned about a new career field, and now they want to explore something they didn't even know existed before. Being able to have moments like that, being able to support a family who was about to be evicted, and because of the family support program was able to keep that housing. Those bright spots happen every day, and I think if we can focus in on communities and on people and make sure that they're taken care of as best as we can through this next period of time, then we'll continue to see children develop and grow and families get at least some of what they need.
That is the magic. That is what we need more of.
And similar, we just opened up registration for our Rosie's Girls summer camps, and they filled up within a day. And I think those were some of the smiles that our staff and all of us wanted and needed to get you through. And our Trailblazers pre-apprenticeship program that's running in South Burlington right now has the highest number of applicants ever. And so it's the motivation we need to see that, we're going to get through this and we can get through it. And there will be challenges today that may be bigger tomorrow, but we'll continue to be there for our participants and the communities, and continue to grow and do the good work.
Amazing, amazing. And so I'm wondering, before we wrap up, if you had a minute or 2 minutes to just, what do you think the public needs to know at this time? What is your message to your community, to the state, to our nation?
I would just say, nonprofits are the foundation of our communities. They support people that make our communities what they are. And, nonprofits are very resilient, as are individuals. But there are some, and Vermont Works for Women has been impacted, as we've heard, but there's other organizations that have been severely impacted and will continue to feel these impacts. And we don't want to lose the great work that has been done and that can be done in our nonprofit communities. And so just staying connected and being loud and vocal, reaching out, understanding how this is impacting organizations. Despite smiles on the day-to-day, it is a struggle to navigate all of these federal changes. And so really staying connected to communities, I think, is the big message that I'm feeling from this and that I hope others will hear from this as well.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Well, I think, the truth is, and we've both spoken to, this today, we're going to continue to see harm happen. We're going to continue to have families and children and organizations, nonprofits, businesses feel the impacts of federal decisions. And I don't think we can really deny that. And I think when you look at the immigrant community and the trans and non-binary community in particular, they're really gonna feel some harm, as they already have. And there's no question that it will continue to be difficult for organizations and for nonprofits, and we need to lean on each other in order to be able to get through that. And I think it's really important that we not let fear dictate our future. We certainly need to be aware of it. We need to respond, but it cannot define who King Street is. There's no King Street without DEI. We serve predominantly Black and brown families, and that is core to our mission. And so I think the message here is that King Street will always work towards its mission, no matter what threats there are out there. And being able to focus on the local level and on people and communities is where we can still have an impact. And I know there are a lot of people out there right now who maybe feel hopeless, or maybe they're not sure what it is they can do, but what they can do is lean in to Vermont, lean into their local community, show up, volunteer, support the people in the community, and that will have an impact.
That's an excellent lead, and I was just about to ask, how can people support organizations in this time in your communities? Rhoni, do you have anything to add? Is there an ask for the public? Or?
I mean, I don't think it's a bigger ask than what was just stated, because that's exactly right. I think you need to lean in and understand. I think, again, DEI is what makes our communities grow, and it's what makes our communities thrive. And I think understanding how these executive orders, and all of them, impact, and what that looks like in the impact, not only today and tomorrow, but the long-term impacts of these. And so just understanding and being loud, I think right now, speak up and speak out is what we need people to do, so that our nonprofit communities can continue to do the work. Having loud supporters allows us to continue to do the day-to-day.
Thank you. I think those are great recommendations.
Can I add one thing in terms of, just because I can't walk away without making a call to the community to volunteer. We need mentors at King Street desperately. We have children every day in our building who are going up to the mentor director going, when is it my turn? When are you going to get me a mentor? And we especially have quite a few boys who are looking for male mentors. And if folks feel like they need some way to respond, they can go to kingstreetcenter.org and actually fill out the interest form and potentially have an hour a week, that's it, with a child to support that child through the coming months and years.
That is such a tangible thing that anyone listening could step up and do. So thank you. I think that's a really great example.
And of course, donate.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
And of course, financially support the organizations as the federal funds potentially disappear.
And be needed. And I know we're just about at the end of our time together, but is there any final remarks, something you want folks to know about your organization, something you have upcoming you're excited about?
Well, we obviously have summer programming coming up. You can check out our website, vermontworkswomen.org, to see our full program calendars and what might be of interest to those out there. I just wanted to say thank you for bringing us together and for highlighting these stories and impacts. I think it only helps our mission and our work, and it allows people to understand what's going on.
Thank you, Rhoni.
I think I'll just close by appreciating the community of people who support the center and the work that we do. It wouldn't be possible to be here right now, and it wouldn't be possible in a year to be here if they weren't showing up all of the time for us by mentoring, by signing up to be a book buddy, by giving their financial resources to us. And so I think thank you to this community for making sure that we are around.
Well, thank you both so much for your time and sharing your experiences and all of the work you do for our communities here. Really appreciate it, as well as to CCTV for helping us elevate these stories, and hope to bring more in coming days. But in any case, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.